Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, John, which is Quantum Eraser, Mitchell from Australia, Chocolate Sane, Eli, Neil, and Arwin, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Hi, Nathan.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, enthusiastic bunch together.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. That was very enthusiastic. I love it. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Not anymore.
You can only find it after you decided to have considerations for it.
Well, mathematically, it exists because it's the basis of 1 AU.
The geometric horizon, as in the derivation that will lead to the R value?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that does lead to 1 AU eventually, after the assumption that that R value that you're not actually measuring because you don't have a sphere-edge horizon to measure it with is actually transposable onto Venus, so that you can apply Kepler's third law to give you the distance to the Sun, when assuming Venus has the same R value as Earth. Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
No. Let's get through these.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Scientific evidence of gravity? No, there isn't.
What about any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, they're all pseudosciences.
Does mic dropping count?
Does helium balloon dropping count? Oh, my bad, it went up.
Next.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Negative.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
The only thing it's spinning is the vacuum in between her ears.
Now we're moving again.
Is that a Q-tip from QE?
Boom.
Is that it?
No. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
I asked a bunch of people that question in another vein, and all I got was smiles.
Did you ask if you can have gas pressure without a container?
You definitely damn sure know I did.
Sounds like you asked in vain.
So in the pre-show, we were told that the science of quantum mechanics was actually maths by someone who didn't understand what the phenomena was. Yeah, well, you were here.
Really? So I walked into the end of the hornet's nest, and so we have phlogiston believers trying to prove their fairy tale by debunking transistors. Is that what we got here?
Basically.
Yep.
That's exactly what we got here. Bring them on.
Yeah, Kant's an ether believer, so he wants to juxtapose the ether belief by attacking the science of quantum mechanics.
Yeah, that's right. So he's trying to prove phlogiston, his religion, by attempting, belly laughingly so, debunking transistors, essentially. These people are dumb fucks.
Hold on, let me just get QE to qualify. He said transistors twice, and a lot of people in the audience may not realise why he said that. It's very intentional. Can you explain why you say transistors specifically?
Oh, well, yeah, transistors are semiconductors. The entire semiconductor industry is based on quantum mechanics. So your phone, your computer, everything you use in your daily life is based on quantum mechanics. You idiots trying to debunk quantum mechanics is tantamount to Richard Petty in an in-race interview denying the existence of internal combustion engines. You're friggin' clowns. You're going to get smoked. It's time to smoke your dumbasses. The first one's Bobster.
Who's Bobster?
Glowbusters, Bobster, dumpster fire. Time, come out and play, chat skank. It's time. That's all I got to say.
It's the season.
Yep. The war is on the double slit experiment now.
Double slit experiment. Which double slit experiment was he talking about?
The one in the maths.
The double spliff experiment.
Did he
He was
say?
claiming
Did he say which experiment? Did he post the paper? Did he just double slit something he heard on Wiki? Was that the game? You have no idea what's about to befall you, numpty dipshits. None.
he really did have no idea.
I asked the other day. Sorry, Mitch, go ahead.
He came in saying that quantum physics, quantum mechanics, anything to do with quanta was only in the maths. Yeah, the word quanta kind of gives it away. He had absolutely no idea.
I asked the other day what the practical application for a fibre optic gyro with a 15 degrees an hour drift demonstratable in it is for. What could you put it to use doing? So we have an example with quantum mechanics. Your computer. There you go. There's the practical application after the science. Now, this is true in most science. Most people don't really appreciate what the scientific experimentation, if explained to them in the most raw terms, is actually useful for, until something useful comes afterwards, until a cure for an illness comes that actually saves people's lives, or something like computers that makes your general existence easier. Now, that's as a direct result of scientific validation. Now, when I say, okay, it's not science, but you've got a gadget, a ring laser, a fog gyro. What's the practical application for a fog gyro with a 15 degrees an hour drift applied in it? Can you tell me what that's practically used for, given that gyros typically are remaining rigid in space so you can look at them if your plane goes out of control? If it's drifted 15 degrees and you've been in the air for an hour, it's not very useful to you anymore. So given that you ether-believing idiots think that you have some sort of validation for your stupid ether in this fog gyro, show me where a 15 degrees an hour drifting gyro is practically used, please. I'd like to see that. It isn't. It defies the usefulness of a gyro. Sounds like a lot of people got skanked. Did anybody contribute towards that 20 grand pile of crap that Bob, who's slagging me off currently, saying we don't understand anything? Did they get ripped off? Did they apply for other people's money? Because it sounds like it's faulty. You know, they need to get a refund. Because gyros aren't useful if they drift. So if your gyro's drifting, you need to get your refund for that 20 grand pile of crap that's faulty. And if you've appealed to people's money to get that piece of crap, then I'm going to have something to say about that. Yeah, if my computer turns up after people have funded it and it's faulty, then it's going to be going back to the manufacturer. This gyro is faulty. Gyros don't drift. They're not useful if they do. So if you're going to show one that's 20 grand and drifting, as opposed to all the others that don't, then there's a problem, a very real problem. It's not proving ether, it's not science, and it's not useful in practical application. So somebody somewhere is having a good laugh that they've got 20 grand for ripping people off. That's the way I see it. If you contributed to that gyro, why aren't you asking, why is it that this gyro drifts where all the others don't to be useful? Show me this 15 degrees an hour fog gyro drifting and being useful. Show me that. You can type it on your computer that quantum mechanics provided you with when you tell me.
Nathan, are you claiming there's no aftermarket use for a failing gyro?
No. The ones that prove ether are resigned to the junkyard because they're no longer going to be useful for finding your fixed position in space if you're in an aeroplane, for example. They're not useful for doing that if they're drifting at 15 degrees an hour. Now, from the ball side of this argument, I like it when they claim that gyros drift at 15 degrees an hour, because that would infer that Earth is a second non-inertial turning reference frame underneath the fixed frame of the gyro. Obviously, for that to be the case, the gyro has to be fixed and the cage has to be attached to something that's rotating at 15 degrees an hour. And if it's claimed that the Earth is the thing that's 15 degrees an hour of rotation influencing the gyro, then Earth's turning underneath the gyro at 15 degrees an hour, and that would shorten flight times. So there's a very different argument. There's a total acceptance of their premise. If a fundy globe believer tells me that a gyro drifts at 15 degrees an hour, they can't because it violates its useful properties. That's why they got some schmuck flat earther to do it for them and defy the very principles of gyros when they're doing it, so that they could use the flat earther and his broken gyro to claim surreptitiously that Earth turns underneath at 15 degrees an hour, which is precisely what they did. Got played, Globe Busters, and anybody else involved in that Netflix absolute joke. You didn't understand the principles that the gyro was claimed to be demonstrating on a turning Earth. Otherwise, you'd just pointed out that they're affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy used in this broken gyro example would infer that Earth turned underneath at 15 degrees an hour. That's 1,000 miles an hour of Earth turning underneath the gyro on the equator. We'd notice if that was the case. That's all it was used for. Now, Bob repositioning the affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy and replacing Earth turn with ether doesn't make it any less of a fallacy that's been repurposed by Globebusters. Why? Well, to dupe all of you lot. All of you lot that watch him. Affirming the consequent and using a formal logical fallacy to substitute in when using a faulty gyro that's drifting.
Be careful, you'll get chat skanked.
Chat skanked. I'm watching other videographers pointing out where Bob's idiotic nonsense contradicts Witsit's idiotic nonsense. So the audience is getting this. They understand the contradictions that are coming from their mouths. And that's what they are. Contradictions. Things that don't make any sense. Bob telling his audience that it's science, while Witsit tells them that it isn't.
That's exactly what's happening.
You thought the ballers were morons. Wait till you hear the end of this, folks.
You're being duped, fellow flat earthers. That's what's happening. You've jumped out the frying pan of globe Earth and jumped straight into the fire of ether. That's what you've done. More fool you, I've got no sympathy. If you want to come here and attack me and tell me that, no, quantum mechanics absolutely sod all to do with the affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy that is a fog gyro, isn't real. Oh, right, are you talking to me on this computer then?
How'd he turn on his cell phone? Clowns. We're in a carnival tent, folks. But this is a bigger one, if you can believe it.
But that's what my standing challenge is now out there. Globebusters want to slag me off and tell me I don't understand any of this stuff. No worries. We've just given you an example of a practical application for science, how it's useful after the fact. Now you do that with your fog gyro. Show me a 15 degrees an hour fog gyro being put into practical application. It's not going to happen.
Those gyros wouldn't have any chips in them, would they?
Yeah, they do. As does the computer that they got the results from. So, but for the fact that quantum mechanics providing them with the actual useful, practically applied computers to read the results from their fog gyro, they wouldn't have been able to read off the results.
This is the greatest goof of all time.
And who is it that's been? And who is it that's been subject to it? The great.
I really can't.
So I was just going to say, who's been subject to this dupe? Oh, well, it's all the people who pride themselves on how smart they are for figuring out that they've been duped. That's the people who've been duped.
Sounds like more and more the case of the misguided gyro.
I don't know. Being convinced that you live on a magical spinning water ball flying around in a vacuum seems like a pretty big dupe.
Yeah, but at least we can somewhat picture it.
Yeah, because they gave us a picture. That's the only reason we can picture it.
Yeah, we all did at that point, but try to put that case forth with phlogiston or ether. Same fucking thing. What's ether? Ether believers? Oh, get ready. Because for the challenge of the medium, because mediums are physical, get ready. Here is the debunk of that argument. Are you ready for this? Well, mediums are defined by materialists. That's it. Fucking clowns. So you're not materialists. Ether believer. Do we have an ether believer on here? I want to ask him about this. What are you made of, ether believer? What did you sleep on this morning? When you got up, when you put clothes on, what was that? When you got breakfast, what's that toaster? Oh, you must be a materialist then. Fucking idiots.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. Ether believers, come out and play. Clowns, ignorant. This is all based on utter ignorance with a fairy tale attachment to a religion. Where have we heard that before?
Yep, out of the frying pan, into the fire.
Well, another issue is that some of these theoretical physicist people add quantum to some of their nonsense, like quantum foam and quantum field theory, because quantum is proved, so they like to tack that on.
That doesn't help. You're exactly right. Yes, but they Jedi mind tricked them because they heard it on Wiki. Oh, it has quantum in front of it. Must be quantum mechanics.
Yeah, it shouldn't shock you. If you understood what science was and the power it possesses, and the usefulness of validated scientific experimentation, you'd realize why people want to hijack it. Oh, quantum. Oh, well, if I put the word quantum in front of my bullshit that I need to sell, people will buy it. Yeah, that's because it's very useful to have validated scientific experimentation and then just leech off it for your bullshit.
Exactly, you got it.
Same happens in medicine all the time. Plenty of science in medicine. There's also plenty of bullshit.
Yep.
Group studies, statistical analyses, various other things like that that definitely aren't science.
I think I might know what ether is.
Oh, this should be good. Go ahead, Duncan.
So if we live inside of a container, would it be reasonable to assume that there is an outside of a container?
I wouldn't have said that was a... No, I don't think that's a reasonable assumption because you just don't know either way.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know either way. So I'm not going to say it's not a reasonable assumption because I don't know either way. Yeah, there could be something beyond the containment we must have, but I don't know either way. Like, I don't know the distance to the sun or what it is. So if you say it's physical, I could say, well, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe there's something beyond the container. I don't know. So it's really hard to argue either way. And I'll disagree with you in both instances if you try and claim it by logical inference.
Well, I was just going to say that outside of the container is an unknown medium, and maybe that could be considered ether.
That's not an ether argument. So outside of Narnia, there's ether. Good job.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Is it a medium? Is it still a medium? Sir.
Well, I would say it's an unknown medium.
It's an unknown medium. Can you define medium for everyone? With citation, please.
Oh. Not offhand.
A medium, this is from physics classroom, a medium is a substance or material. From Wiki, medium, material substance. From Bijus, medium, the substance. Everywhere you go, a medium in physics is physical. Substance, like water. That's a medium, right? Air is a medium, right? Yeah, you get it? That's where all this ends. It just dies right there.
No, it's going to end somewhere else. Level Up just.
Well, I think
posted
that's
in-
actually a misconception, though.
Oh, go on.
Misconception.
Hold on.
of a
This is the
medium.
guy that told us
Great
that.
help.
Hold on. You told us that quantum mechanics was mathematical in the pre-show, Khan. And then when I pointed out that it was physics based on the physical occurrences that are being studied, the natural phenomena, you didn't respond.
Yeah, I wasn't able to. Sorry. I'm at work.
Fair enough. I'll let you off.
Does my sound work?
Yes, 10th. Your sound does work. Yes,
Yes.
you were rumpused in the middle of that statement.
Yeah, well,
I'm
Level
sorry.
Up posted Phil B's comment in Master D. Now we know where those broken gyros go. Phil B says, if the gyro does not drift, it's either cheap and nasty with poor bearings or it's broken. If it's a ring laser gyro, it's out of alignment. Either way, a gyro must drift or it's faulty.
What? Must
Please
drift?
help me.
Phil
Yeah,
B.
please help
Phil.
me.
Prof. Phil. You don't understand how a gyro works.
It must drift.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, gyros are used in planes. If a gyro is drifting, you don't want to use that gyro, Phil B. Absolute moron.
I don't get why Phil B's got on this bandwagon. Well, I didn't understand until this morning. I think it was Brian pointed out, well, this is heliocentric in origin. Ether has come from heliocentrism. So obviously there's going to be some heliocentric ether believers. I was like, yeah, of course there is. Back in the day, even YouTube has been republishing these recently, the very, very early flat earth debate shows, when we had globe believers arguing with each other about ether. I kid you not. Come from Electric Universe. Coincidentally, what Bob was studying before he made his way to Flat Earth. Just managed to carry it over into Flat Earth and bullshit all of his followers.
Another scary thing is Bob's a pilot. If he thinks that gyros should drift, I would hate to see him behind a plane. Like, seriously, he should know better that gyros should not be drifting. If your gyro that is in your navigation system in your plane is drifting, you've got a faulty gyro, and he's meant to be a pilot?
Well, I've already asked, where do we put drifting gyros into practical application? Maybe Phil Beale can tell us. Because all he's done is made a baseless assertion, they must drift. Oh, really? Well, how does a drifting gyro work in practical application?
Definitely no
they went-
navigation systems.
I thought they went to the Arizona junkyard.
They do. If they're drifting, they're not useful anymore.
Exactly. If they're drifting, they're not useful. If they did drift, they could find their own latitude. But a latitude needs to be entered into the navigation system so it knows where it is to begin with. If it was drifting, it could find its own latitude, but it cannot do that because it does not drift. Therefore, it is useful with navigation.
And if it did drift based on a globe Earth assumptions of latitudinal positioning, that would mean Earth's turning underneath the plane at 15 degrees an hour to cause the drift.
It's all making sense for Wolfie now. He's got a faulty gyro, so he has to adjust for the faulty gyro in his plane.
The gyros are relevant to Wolfie. Wolfie thinks that the drift observed from the ground, that would be Coriolis effect described on a turning globe Earth, is accountable for in a plane. When it's an effect observed from the ground, Wolfie's just thick.
Wow. So Wolfie would basically go into a room of spent up gyroscopes and then just like, oh, these are all incorrect. They should be drifting. It's gonna like try to ruin it until they all drift 15 degrees an hour. That's brilliant.
I thought the reference frames were already ruined. What
That's
happened?
another idiot, Simon Dan the idiot, telling us that the globe claim of Coriolis effect with 2 reference frames is ruined. Why? Well, because Dan doesn't observe any drift. Nothing's drifting according to Dan. We're never going to see any drift. Reference frame's ruined. Yeah, that's because in reality we don't see drift. That's why Dan's giving us examples of no drift. Because there isn't any. He's trying to justify why there isn't any drift. That 15 degrees an hour that's supposed to be there because Earth is claimed to turn underneath, things not attached, so we can see them drift at 15 degrees an hour. It's called Coriolis effect. I'm sure we're all aware that the globe claims this. Well, Dan's gone out of his way to show us examples of it not happening.
Nathan.
No, I think it's the whole situation is due to broken gyroscopes. It's because they're all faulty and they're not drifting. But maybe if you correct that and you make all the gyros drift, then maybe the Coriolis effect of actual deviation because of different reference frame will also become corrected and visible again.
Can I give a real world example of what Phil B wrote? Can you imagine Phil B going on a flight, and as he's entering the plane, he sees the pilot and he says, "Hey, I just want to make sure that your gyro is faulty and drifting before I get on."
Yeah, there's been a delay. We're stuck on this tarmac for another hour. Obviously, the gyro will have drifted 15 degrees an hour, so therefore it'll be 15 degrees out when we take off. It said no pilot ever.
They got the Coriolis corrector for that.
They can't correct Coriolis in a plane, though. That's the point that Wolfie got wrong. Your Coriolis effect is only observable from the ground as you rotate beneath things, Arwin. Certainly never to be accounted for in an aeroplane. Cannot be accounted for in an aeroplane. If it was being accounted for, you'd be accounting for something that isn't happening. An apparent drift observed from the ground isn't ever going to be accounted for in a plane. Wolfie's just thick.
It's crazy when you've been in this argument for like 7 years and you realize the only thing that they've tried to prove with Coriolis is to prove how we don't see Coriolis.
Yeah.
That's nutty.
Justify why we don't see the effect. Because we don't. There is no Coriolis effect to observe, so you have someone like Simon Dan showing you why we don't observe the 15 degrees an hour the globe claims we will see. Look, the reference frames the globe needs to claim there's 15 degrees an hour drift are ruined. Look, here's an example of something not drifting like we observe in our reality. Yeah, that's right, Dan, we don't observe anything drifting. No, we don't have two reference frames, but reference frames in general for Coriolis effect are very much a real thing. You can observe them if you're on a roundabout looking at anything not attached to it. It looks like it's moving when it isn't. That's what the globe's supposed to do. Not according to Dan. Dan says that's debunked. The reference frames are ruined. Wolfie says that the reference frames are reversed, and he can account for the non-inertial turning reference frame beneath his plane. Idiots. All of them. They're all thick. This is what YouTube count as authoritative content. Meanwhile, we get a tramp stamp saying that we're stupid and Flat Earth is wrong, while the authoritative content tells you that the reference frames the globe's needing to prove it's spinning are ruined. That'll get you 1 million views.
Was that the caption for his video? The one, the one he provided you that's supposed to prove Coriolis by not showing any Coriolis? was that the caption for it? Because maybe it should be.
Look, globe Earth isn't showing any Coriolis effect. No drift.
Well, the funny thing is, I was at a carousel last night, and I could have demonstrated it, but my son didn't want to.
You wanted to get on a carousel and say, look, see that tree? It looks like it's coming towards you. Now it's going away. Looks like it's coming towards me again. Now it's going away. That's me turning underneath it. That's a not actual drift of a tree. It's not really moving. Trees are rooted into the ground. But if I'm on a roundabout looking at the tree, it looks like it's drifting. That's not actual drift. Same not actual drift that's claimed in Coriolis. You on a roundabout looking at something moving in a straight path, seeming to drift because you're turning beneath it. That's what the globe Earth is supposed to exhibit. It just doesn't. And when someone like Dan realises that it doesn't show that effect, they tell us all about why it doesn't exhibit the effect that's supposed to prove we spin. And then Bob will come along and say, you know what, that crap argument that says we spin because we've got 15 degrees an hour drift observable in gyros that don't drift. Well, here's an example of the globe claim of drift caused by Earth turning beneath. And when that drift occurs, I'm going to say it's ether. Not not Earth turn. I'll just repurpose the if P then Q, Q therefore P statement used by globe believers to assert that gyros that don't drift are actually drifting. Actually only a Foucault pendulum and a Foucault gyro that seems to exhibit this effect. Oh, and bobs. All the rest of them are put into practical application to stop planes from flying into the ground. So is there any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nathan, I put up in Master D a cover of a book called The Ethereal Ether. Can you go to that, please?
Yeah.
Did you say Master D?
Yeah, it's now a Master D.
Yeah, gum.
Nathan's got delusions of grandeur.
And that's because of Gem Panda. He said you were all my disciples. So I changed
Oh,
Master...
yeah, that's right.
So I changed Master B, which was masturbators, to Master D, Master Disciple.
Oh,
Okay, got your
Good
book
old
up.
gem.
Can we get to the posting, please?
Yeah, we're on it. I've got your cover up.
My goodness. All right. The Ethereal Ether, a history of the Michelson-Morley-Miller ether drift experiments, 1880-1930. Look at the table of contents, next page. Perspectives on the ether. Dramatas persona of ether drift, Michelson, and interferometry, 1883. The classic experiment, contradictions and contractions, transformations of ether, Morley-Miller experiment, the rise of relativity, the fall of ether. Oh my gosh, we got a whole history of it. The fall of ether.
Got a problem with the experiments that you mentioned a number of times there.
Well, I do too, but again,
Number 12.
I can
You're
tell.
just reporting.
Go on, QE.
Go on.
Are you just reporting?
Yes, I'm just reporting.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I found it interesting that when I hit ether, they have a book saying it was there, and then the rise of relativity, then the fall of ether. Well, what did the rise of relativity do to make ether fall?
Nothing. It supported it. It's at the base of it.
Do you want to explain that, please? How did relativity support ether, please, Quantum Eraser?
How did Einstein said it did. Space without ether is unthinkable from his own hand.
Are you claiming this or just reporting it?
I'm reporting it.
Fair enough.
All right, so the third slide from this book says illustrations. I'm interested to know what Miller's hot dog stand has to do with ether.
It's like, what? Hot dog stand?
Yeah, the third.
Miller's
Yeah,
hot
the
dog
third
stand.
slide.
Yeah, I see it.
10.
I just,
No, 11.
yeah, I see it. I just don't know what it is.
Do I?
Anybody know what Miller's hot dog stand is?
There's got to be a link somewhere.
You not know what it is either, I take it.
Tim. I got that.
I know you
Yeah,
did.
shh. do you not know what it is either?
I just saw the book. I have to go research a hot dog stand to find out what it is. I don't have the time right now.
Okay, fair enough. Don't be a wiener.
That's a loser. It's not a winner.
Okay, can I take this off now?
Go ahead.
So this is Simon Dan with his demonstration of no drift.
Which definitely proves that there is drift, because that's how that works, right?
Yeah, definitely proves Earth's got Coriolis effect if Simon Dan comes along in his authoritative content and tells you that the reference frames needed to claim it are bloody ruined. Yeah, great content. No, his response to that was when I pointed out that the reference frames you're saying are ruined are the ones the globe claims to prove we're spinning. Do you know what his response to that was? Nathan's obsessed with me. That was his response.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that was his response.
with a
About-
guy like that, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Got about 400,000 views for that. Just saying, Nathan doesn't know what he's talking about. He's obsessed with me. No, I'm pointing out that the reference frames the globe needs to claim Coriolis effect are being claimed by you to be ruined, Dan. You idiot.
Well, this is how they become hypocrites because they don't stick to the official globe narrative because it can't be proven. But they believed it until they were challenged. Once they're challenged, they can't prove it. So they go against the very globe claims that we're trying to hold them to because that's who they say they are.
Well, you got to forgive them, Tom, because they can prove what they can, right? So that's why he shows us a video where there's no drift, because he can't prove drift. So let him prove whatever he can, which is that there's no drift. And hopefully that'll prove that there is drift. Because, you know, globe logic.
Well, did you just realize Phil B said you need a broken gyro and you can prove drift?
I'm still quite intrigued to what Phil means by that, because he's thrown out his baseless assertion that they must be drifting. Okay. Well, same goes for you, Phil. Where's the practical application for a drifting gyro?
You can't challenge Phil. His response is, I teach hundreds of students. I'm a teacher.
And you teach them that drift is required in a gyro that has an inherent principle that it remains rigid in space. That's what you teach them, is it? That they must be drifting as they remain rigid in space. No, that's definitely not what you teach. That's not what a gyro does. But I'd be intrigued to know what Phil actually thinks is the case in regards to gyros drifting. Does he think they all drift? I can show him plenty of examples of gyros that don't drift. And that's how they're used. That's their practical application.
On a side note, I wanna give a little a shout out. Well, not a shout out. Maybe pour out a little liquor to the Scrub Artemis launch that was supposed to happen today. You know, on our venture back to the moon through a second law of thermodynamics violation. So sad.
You mean
Yeah, the gyro's drifting.
They didn't get to go through the wardrobe into Narnia?
Nope.
Oh no. Is it delayed? The wardrobe doors closed and now they'll be opened again in September?
Yep. Doors are closed.
In the pre-show, Neil was asking me, Chocolate, what happens to the rockets afterwards? If you're saying, well, I'm going to expand on what he was asking, but if I'm suggesting that it's all fake, you might get to stand at Cape Canaveral or Cape Cod or Cape Kennedy or whatever it's called now and watch a firework go into the sky and disappear from view. Does that mean that it's travelled to Narnia? No. It's the equivalent of watching the kids walk into a wardrobe. Now, if you open the wardrobe doors after they've gone into the wardrobe and they're not there anymore, do you go, oh, they must have gone to Narnia then? No, you don't, because Narnia is not real. Do you question where they went? Well, they must have gone somewhere. I don't care. Narnia's not real. It doesn't really fuss me how this magic trick's done. Making the children disappear from the wardrobe doesn't mean they went through the wardrobe to Narnia. And I don't have to explain where they went. And not being able to explain where the children went if I open the wardrobe doors after they walked into it and they're not there anymore doesn't mean that Narnia is real if I can't explain where the kids went. It just means I can't explain the magic trick. Now, in the case of the moon or space in general, it's the other way round. So the automatic assumption is that space is real, and that somehow us showing that somebody dropping a screw in the ISS when they're supposed to be in 0G should be the way we go about debunking this. No, this is 2022, not 2015. We don't need to pull apart the fake footage filmed on a set here on Earth anymore. The place they're going to is a second law of thermodynamics violation. The sky is not a vacuum. If the sky was a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill that space. We would all be dead. So the next time you look at a picture of the blue marble with its high-pressure gaseous clouds on the outside of it, not dispersing into the 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum that's black next to it, you'll scratch your head and go, I don't really need to wonder whether or not they're going to the moon. This picture and all of the claimed area around it cannot possibly be real. I'd be dead. There'd be no gas. The gas would fill the vacuum instantly.
You remember about a month ago or so, the picture that showed this video as well, a glass of water on the countertop in the ISS?
I think that was Chinese footage.
That was funny.
What Tenth's talking
Here they're
about
showing
is a piece to camera by guys claimed to be, guy and a girl claimed to be in space. And while they're doing the interview, I remember watching and going, oh, I don't see anything wrong with this. It's just normal NASA fakery, or looks like normal NASA fakery. And then somebody zooms in on the glass of water that's just sat next to them, not floating around, perfectly level and flat, just doing what a glass of water does, not in space.
That's hilarious because I ran into that on Instagram, right? And I even took a screenshot because on it on the post, let me see, it says they kind of flagged it. Whoever posted it, somebody named the Flat Earther, he posted it and they flagged it saying, missing context, the same information was reviewed by independent fact checkers in another post. With the glass sitting there on the table as the Chinese people.
Oh, let me get it straight.
In the aircraft.
Let me get it straight. YouTube's take on this is, if you show that authoritative content is wrong, we will suppress your information. You're not allowed to show that there's a glass of water in violation of the claim of gravity or lack thereof in this instance. You're not allowed to show that. Take it from the people with the authoritative content to ignore the glass of water.
Exactly. I'll post it in Master D now. I'll post it there. You could see it.
Maybe some of the globe-believing fundies from the chat can explain this for us. Not that we need to be explaining this. We already know that it's filmed on Earth with cameras in oxygen and gas pressure. We already know that, because it can't possibly be taking place in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, because we'd all be dead if it was. So we already know it's fake. However, given that we've already declared how fake it is and why it's fake, if you still believe that it isn't fake because you're a delusional globe-believing muppet, maybe you can explain why there's a glass of water in this image that's not floating around in zero G like you'd expect.
I posted it in Master D.
Thank you, got it.
The red warning on the bottom.
There's missing content. The same information was reviewed by independent fact checkers in another post. Sorry, what's to check? There's a glass of water there. They're floating and it isn't. You know why? Because they're on trapeze. They're not floating in space. You've all been had. See where it says space down here? Yeah, that's a lie. Yeah, they didn't get a trapeze for the glass of water, did they? They forgot to dupe you with that bit, didn't they? Go on, globe-believing idiots in chat. Where's the explanation for this globe-believing idiots in chat? We say fake space, no sky vacuum, these guys are all on trapeze. How do we prove it? Because they're obviously all on trapeze and there's a glass of water not floating?
The best part of that post, though, right, was that he juxtaposed this and right after that with a video of the most smartest, greatest astronaut ever, Don Pettit, saying that a glass of water or glass would never, ever, ever work in space. So like it picks up a glass and it shows you how a glass with holding liquid, that would never, ever work in space. And then it goes back to this with the glass sitting on the table in space. It's great.
Well, think about it, Chocolate. Say what Don Pettit said again?
That a glass like this would never, ever work in space.
Yeah, proof that they're not in space.
Absolutely correct.
Thanks.
This is proof they're not in space. Space isn't real, though, because the idea of proving they're not in space still leaves you with the idea or notion that there could be a space, they're just not in it. Space isn't real, hence we don't need to go to this extent looking at glasses of water in fake cinematography. We already know they're faking it. It can be instantly deemed a hoax because space is fake. It's a violation of natural law. What do we do with the bullshitters in our community? I mean, I've seen a few comments from people that are saying, oh, well, now we've got the same in Flat Earth as we've got everyone else. Men versus women, black versus white, and now it's ether believers versus realists. But they don't phrase it like that. They call us particle believers versus ether believers, like this false dichotomy of... Go on. Was that somebody?
I'm agreeing with you because that's what they've been saying.
I think the correct phrase is atomists.
There we go. Atomists. It's like, how many times have you been on the show describing how this concept of atoms is described mathematically? Now, I don't know. There might be people out there on the flat Earth side of things that do reify these conceptual ideas. Same goes for wave functions. But we don't. We understand how they're being described mathematically, conceptually. Does that mean that there isn't anything in physical reality to deal with in physics? No, there definitely is. How we describe it with our crap use of language doesn't change the physical aspects of these things, and that they can be studied with science. They can. We can also describe them with mathematics. It doesn't take away from their physical validity. However, if you've only got a mathematical description of something and nothing in physical reality, then all you have is maths and not science. So my question, which is thrown out to you guys, is what do we do? Should we change our attitude to stop this claim to be false dichotomy? Ignore the crazy ether believers with their bullshitting, lying tactics to deceive their audiences? What should we do?
Keep hammering them. Every time they come in, hammer time.
Do you think it would help to point out to them that they're falling for the same trick they did with Earth Curve when they were heliocentrists?
We did.
No.
We did. We said, out of the frying pan, into the fire. You've been deceived by one religion, and then you've just found a new guru to deceive you with another.
But in the exact same way, because the same thing that heliocentrism does with the differential between two flat planes, they're getting waves out of a particle distribution.
I think we shouldn't start with the pre-assumption that whatever's brought to the table is nonsense. I think we should go a bit back to 2015 and what got us out of this mess, which is just believing in shit, or stopping believing in shit. Yeah. And as with any claim, look at it with honest eyes and appraisal.
But Adam, what are they bringing, Adam? We would, but what do they keep bringing?
Nothing. They tell us, like earlier on this very show, I think the guy was playing devil's advocate, but nevertheless, he's saying, well, it could be a medium beyond the understood containment we require, which is just an unknown medium, which is a contradiction in terms. It's an oxymoron. A medium describes how there is something, and an unknown medium isn't that. So it's an oxymoron.
That's the Platonic way of viewing it. The Greek, we breathe air, and then that blue stuff up there in the realm of the gods is the ether, which is the air for the gods to breathe. It's different, but that would be, as far as away, one of the Greek historical ways of describing it. Before you needing necessarily to attribute any function, physics function, to it, just a literal way of describing that it is actually something, and its purpose is it's the equivalent of the air for the gods.
You know, that you say that now, like I think I mentioned this before. To me, it just feels like maybe this whole thing is out of context. Maybe it's more of a spiritual type discussion as opposed to a scientific one. I mean, even they claim that there's no science for this. You can't. It's not manifest. Why do you know? What's that about? Why do you not know?
Bob claims it's science.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, we don't give a fuck about what Bob has to say.
True.
What do you
And this is what I'm saying. Like to the guys that believe in ether, like, do you guys consider it more of a spiritual thing as opposed to a quantifiable scientific thing? Because if that's the case, then I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with this. If that's the case, right? So is that what you guys consider it to be, more of that than?
Yeah. Well, it's metaphysical. Cool. It's outside the realm. It's outside the realm, just like the spirit or consciousness or even logic. You can't show me each one of those things, but they are there. They are present. It is aware that they are there.
That's ridiculous.
Metaphysical.
You just said it's outside the realm, but they are there in the realm. What are you talking about?
Outside the realm of science. Outside the realm of science. You can't science it. You can't science consciousness. You can't.
Well, how do you know it's there?
But they're there.
How do you know it's there?
You can only know philosophically. I think, therefore I am.
Oh gosh. What do you mean? How do you know what's there?
Hey, take it as your God, then, 10th. Take it as your God.
No, that's
how
not
do you
my
prove
God.
your God, huh? That's philosophical, isn't it?
Can you stop doing this? Every time we talk about ether. Okay, everyone stop a second, please. Everyone stop. That means stop. Right. We started this discussion with QE coming into the fray by pointing out that if you're going to try and debunk phlogiston, you don't attract semiconductors. That's what you're doing.
What's ether?
I didn't say any of that right now.
What's ether?
What's consciousness?
What is ether?
There we go. What's consciousness?
Consciousness.
So rather than answering what ether is,
show me consciousness.
So now you're going to rumpus the living shit out of me while I point out that to attack phlogiston, you're going to attack semiconductors. So we ask what ether is, and you ask us what consciousness is.
Are you retarded?
Ether, not
Are you retarded? Are you retarded?
What ether is?
Ether. Simple question.
Show me consciousness.
Ether.
Sorry, why are we being asked to show what consciousness is? When did we make a claim about it? The claim on the table is ether.
Show you ether.
Thank you, Neil. The claim on the table is ether, not consciousness. Now, to my knowledge, none of us are here claiming that there's a consciousness field that encompasses the entirety of our existence. We're not claiming that.
Well,
I would.
Okay, but that is the thing. Ether is metaphysical.
Ether?
Consciousness.
What is it?
Is metaphysical.
What is ether?
So there he goes again, contrasting it with something it isn't. So he's contrasting it with something it isn't. No, we don't.
I literally said it 2 times. Metaphysical.
What does that mean? What does metaphysical mean?
It's the background, man.
Not what I asked.
I just
I don't use the word. I don't. Hold on, 10th. I don't understand what the word means. What do you mean, metaphysical? What does that mean?
Can I jump in on this? Because I think
No, just wait.
It's abstract. It's abstract.
What does abstract mean?
Oh my fucking god! Are we just gonna play this?
Yeah, well, you're using the words, Dumbo. You want to use the word abstract? I'm going to say, what does abstract mean? If you don't like telling me what the words you're using are, don't use them. It's just that simple. Yeah, if you use a word to describe ether, I'm going to want you to qualify and describe that word to us. If you don't want to do it and you're like, oh God, I just want to throw out these crazy words, not define them, and then have you understand that the word that's undefined by me is actually the description of ether. No, that's not going to happen.
But that's the whole point, right? That's why I asked the question before about, is it more of a spiritual thing or in the realm of spirituality? Because they claim that you can't quantify it. It's not manifest. It's not something that I can show you or science. So I don't know. Like, again, I think maybe this is like a different type of discussion, and maybe we're just having it wrong.
No, they're having it wrong because they say it's a medium.
That is 100% right. That is 100% right. And
that's 100% right.
This is where you're, Eli.
What's abstract?
Right? Or that was chocolate. Whoever said that, yeah,
What's
they're
abstract
100%
mean?
right. You're having the conversation all wrong because you want to science the shit out of it.
What's
And when
abstract? We don't want to science it. We want to know what it is. That has nothing to do with science. What is it? What's ether?
QE. But
It has nothing to do with it.
This is why I'm trying to get to the guy, right? Because he's like he just said, you can't quantify it. It's not scientific, right? So yeah, there might be people. Hold on, there might be people in his camp that are saying it's science and saying you could quantify it, but that might not be everyone's stance who's having this ether discussion.
Who gives a shit? What is it?
Okay, so we're gonna follow. So we're gonna follow each equivocation fallacy, right?
Can I just maybe ask a question?
Go ahead, Adam.
He is the emissary.
Who is it in Discord? Just so I can.
Khan.
Khan.
Oh no, Chaos.
Chaos.
How do you say your name?
It's Shen Chaos.
There you go.
Oh God.
Okay. So from what I'm hearing there, like last week, when we asked what ether was, we were referenced with an analogy to magnetism. And now today I'm hearing it's like consciousness. So are you drawing it as an analogy to like a morphic field?
As a what?
A morphic field?
A morphic field?
Yeah. But no, then you don't know what that is. That's fine. That's obviously a separate field that's supposed to dissipate consciousness within animals, humans, shared experience, innate learning. When you're talking about consciousness and fields and...
You just get something squared away from the guy who believes in ether.
Well, not exactly, but it's... For your understanding, I guess you can kind of look at it if that's how you see it.
Says the guy that didn't know what a morphic field is.
Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. Adam, 1 second. You're talking to a gentleman that asked a question last week to show him the mechanical parts of a magnet. Is that guy?
Yeah.
Why the hell are you even talking to this idiot?
I don't know. But this comment from Globebusters is directed at us.
What are they, QE? What are they?
Sorry, this question is specifically directed at us from Globebusters. He says, FED is incapable of understanding the science behind ether. That's what it says.
Yep.
So, guy in Discord, is it science or isn't it?
Nope.
It's not. So, Bob's wrong. Globebusters, even the guys on your own side who believe in ether know you're wrong. You don't understand science, Bob. Even Austin, in his own video, highlighted here by Rachy50, is pointing out that Austin understands it's not science and makes that very clear, but you think we don't understand that science. I've spoken to you personally about the science of ether, haven't I, Bob? You didn't know then either what science was, and you still don't. Let's get it clear. We understand there isn't any science for ether. Maybe you could present some, Bob, so we can take a giant steaming dump on your ignorance of science.
So are you still waiting for the answer for the mechanical parts of a magnet? You friggin' muppet.
Yeah, sure. Let's see it.
Why don't you tell us? You asked us. That you must know. Please tell us the mechanical parts of a magnet. Go.
Well, it just seems like you guys never answer any questions that are asked.
Well, that sounds like total projection. So you're asked about the mechanical parts of a magnet, something you claimed here, recorded, and you're going to tell me and my panel that we don't answer questions.
Yes, QE has claimed that himself.
Sorry, that's projection. That's called projection. It's something that ballers do when they can't answer questions either. They project their inability to answer questions onto us and tell us that we don't have the ability to answer questions. Now, that'd be you.
Yep. No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not, because every time we come on here, how many questions do I ask from each and every single one of you? About half a dozen from each. When
Really?
we ask one question,
and you answer all of the you answer all of the ones we asked of you. Then, so what's wave function collapse? You said it was
Did
maths.
I even bring that up now?
Yeah, you did. You said it was maths. You dumb shit. Yes, you did bring it up, specifically telling me that it wasn't science. And then when I asked you, after asking me what the natural phenomena was, and I pointed out after you asked me what the natural phenomena was, that it was wave function collapse, answering your question. I asked you if you knew what wave function collapse was, and you did not.
Who cares?
Who cares when you're asking us what the phenomena is, and I'm telling you what the phenomena is for your question of what the phenomena is? The phenomena's wave function collapse. So who cares? You do. You asked about it, you stupid boy.
I asked.
Yeah, so you care, you stupid dick. Why are you asking me who cares when you asked the question? Stupid Ether the Believer. You're all idiots, you Ether believers. You've got a very, very limited understanding of almost everything you spew. This guy's no exception. He's got no understanding of what he's talking about. He asked me what the natural phenomena was in the double slit experiment. I told him with his constant interruptions and fundy muting as I did so. And then when it's pointed out that he's been told what it is, he just didn't understand what that phenomena was and couldn't describe it, he tells us that we're not answering his questions. We did. You asked me what the phenomena was. I told you it was wave function collapse and asked you if you understood what that was. You didn't.
No, actually, I didn't answer because I wasn't able to be present.
So what's wave function collapse?
Are you measuring with the wave function?
Who's White Knighting?
Hold on. He asked me a question.
I did. What's wave function collapse? Would you like to answer it?
Oh. Still no answer. We'll just sit here and wait.
What, for you to become less dumb? That'll take a long time. We could sit here and wait all day for you to become less dumb and understand the answer to your own question about the phenomena in the double slit experiment, but I won't be sitting all day hoping that you'll become less dumb with time, because that's not going to happen. Entropy will take hold. You will become more stupid the longer we wait here. It won't take any amount of time. You will become more dumb the longer this goes on.
Question, Nathan, not you. I asked QE a question.
Oh, did you really? Because you're in charge of the show and your dumbass questions about mechanical magnets are going to be flying here because you're in charge of the show, are you, Dumbo? No, you see, what I do as the host is I humiliate you. After you ask me what the phenomena in double slit is, I tell you and then ask you if you understand, and you don't.
Just shows that you don't understand.
Oh, it's just projection of I don't understand what wave function collapse is. So if I don't understand what wave function collapse is, given that you asked me what the phenomena in the double slit was, and I told you, that means I don't understand, even though I've asked you what it is and you don't know.
And you jump around to another question.
Like, you're just going to point out that the question you haven't asked hasn't been answered, and that's jumping around to another question. No, it's the same question. What's wave function collapse? Something you claimed was mathematical only.
Didn't answer that question.
I asked it. It seems that projection of us being the ones not answering the questions is just pure projection. Yeah? So unless it's a question you're asking, which has been answered, you asked me what the phenomena was in double slit. I answered.
No.
Yeah, I did. I asked. You asked, sorry. I answered. So you're just lying when you say we don't answer your questions. I did answer your question. I told you what the phenomena was after you asked me. Now I'm asking you if you know what that phenomena is after being told as an answer to a question you asked. You're still going along that barking trip of telling us that we're not answering questions? No, Ether Believer, you aren't. You're projecting.
Nathan, is it possible that he doesn't realize why asking about the mechanical parts of a magnet is nonsensical?
No, he doesn't know that yet.
Well, okay, I have another question for the Ether guys. So you say you ask us a lot of questions, but you're asking us questions about something that you guys juxtapose with consciousness. How do you want that to go?
Wrong,
Like
wrong. You already got it wrong.
No, he did. You did juxtapose it with consciousness only about 10 minutes ago.
Did you not do that earlier?
He did.
I did not.
Yes, you did. It's recorded and broadcast live to an audience of over 115 people. You absolutely juxtaposed it with consciousness.
That was about ether.
Yeah, so you did juxtapose ether with consciousness then, so you are in fact a liar, and now you're lying about your juxtaposition of ether with consciousness when you said no, that isn't the case. Yeah, that definitely was the case.
Maybe he didn't realize I wasn't talking about wave function or double slit or anything. I'm asking about ether, right? And the string of questions that were asked about ether and obviously just whole discussion. But you guys juxtapose, well, maybe you, I don't want to put you I don't want to generalize you, but you put it in the kind of the same basket of consciousness. So my question is, how do you expect that to go when we're talking about something like consciousness? It's a real question. I'm not trying to be a dick or anything like that. So,
correct me if I'm wrong, right? I'm not claiming that ether is consciousness, but within something like the double slit or the quantum eraser tests, what is the causal mechanism for the collapse of the wave function?
Knowledge of the which path?
Not ether.
Sorry, what's this got to do with ether? Why are we now talking about the double slit experiment again?
I'm asking what is the causal
Why? What did we claim? What did we claim about it? To be defending it, we need to have made a claim about it. I'm not claiming anything.
Well, I'm trying to clarify. Listen to me for just a second. I'm trying to clarify because most of the information that you find online is that the conscious observer is the causal mechanism for the collapse of the wave function.
The conscious
so is that
no.
mechanism?
That's incorrect. That's not correct. The conscious observer doesn't cause wave function collapse. You can have a conscious observer watching diffraction and nothing will happen.
It's
That's not correct.
So is that?
That's not correct.
So consciousness is the causal function.
Sorry, when I just said no, that's wrong. Did you feel that repeating it for the second time would make it right? No, that's incorrect.
Well, you got a bunch of people flipping over you, so can you explain it to me? What is the cause of the collapse of the wave function?
I did. Knowledge of the which path. Knowing which path it went through. That's not a conscious observer. It's knowledge of which path. Which path did the light go through? Did it go through... Oh, my bad. It's only me explaining the fucking answer to you, you dumb shit. Shut up! What's your malfunction? Why are you babbling through me? I'm answering you. Knowing which slit it went through. Now, did I at any stage say consciousness observance? No. Knowing which path it went through.
Isn't that possibly incorrect as well?
Is the cause.
No.
Knowledge of which path. That's which path information.
So knowledge of which path causes
Yes. Knowledge of the which path information. That's correct.
Is knowledge require a consciousness?
No.
Yeah.
But a consciousness will recognize.
No, hold on. That wasn't your answer.
And then
you
when you
said
say something logical like that, you get laughed.
Hold on, we're getting White Knight Rumpus, discussing it with a different guy now, Chaos.
He claimed a conscious observer. That was your answer, not consciousness, you clown.
So
you said
is an observer conscious? Can you have an unconscious observer?
Conscious observer was your specific claim.
Like a slit detector.
Oh.
Sorry, is a slit detector a conscious observer? That would be a camera pointed over one of the slits so you can see which path it went through. Is a slit detector conscious?
Does it have knowledge?
It's a slit detector. It's a fucking camera. What do you think?
So my camera has knowledge?
No. But the camera detected... No. But the camera detected which path the light went through.
You can't measure consciousness.
So the camera is the cause?
You can't measure consciousness.
No. Which path information for the 5th time? Not the camera. Where did you get the camera? It's the cause. When I said 5 times, which path information? How do you extrapolate camera from that? I asked if the camera was conscious, because you're saying it's consciousness that's the cause, even though you don't know.
Can an unconscious thing have knowledge?
Like a camera?
Correct.
Hold on a second. The delayed quantum choice quantum eraser took the slit detectors out.
Yeah, we haven't got onto that yet.
So that's nonsensical.
Don't ruin where I'm going with this. Don't ruin it. I'm going to get rid of the slick detector next. You're ruining this, John.
But he said conscious, and you can't measure consciousness. This is like a whole department.
That's fascinating. It's fascinating. If we were measuring consciousness, we're not, though. We're measuring which path information.
Right, which is very specific and narrow. It's which of these paths. That's the range, the scope, the complexity of the information. Yep. It's basically information that causes it.
Spot on, Arwin. Good, well summarized.
Can you manipulate this information?
Yes.
Whether or not you know which path it went through, you tell me, do you think you can vary whether or not you know which slit it went through? I'm trying to lead you to come to your own conscious decision-making and logical inference from this. Your question is, I don't know why I'm doing this. Why are we doing this? This is a question about ether. And now here we are talking about the double slit experiment and the scientific validity that's given us the computer you're asking me on.
Yep.
So, ether. Meanwhile, ether.
That's talk just about an observation, then. You're not.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's fascinating. We've got a claimed experiment in the form of a ring laser gyro. It's claimed to be an experiment. Now we're all clear. We've got science for quantum. That's not what we're discussing, though. We're discussing the science for ether. That's what we're actually discussing.
So you're observing effects, right?
So what's ether?
He's just asking us about basic science now. Natural phenomena, yes, that's what we observe in science. So what's that in the form of ether?
What's an electron?
Why is every ether question always answered with another question that doesn't address ether?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe project onto us after that we're not answering your questions about something that's totally unrelated to ether. It's actually us not answering your questions that's the problem here. No, you've got a claim, an all-encompassing ether that envelops everything, but is undetectable, unmanifest, but yet you still believe in it, and you think you've got science for it. That's what we're talking about.
So where does the photon go?
So what's that got to do with ether? We're not talking about photons, we're talking about ether.
Where does it manifest from?
Ether?
Where does it manifest from?
What, ether? I don't think it does. I think ether's just a load of old nonsense you guys believe in. Is it time for you to rumpus me? Because it's not the question that you want to answer about ether and your claim of ether. You need it to be a question of us about something we're not making claims about at the moment. That's not ether. Therefore, rumpus me when I point out that every time we try and tie him down to answer one of our questions about his claim about ether, he starts rumpusing me because we're not answering his questions about particles.
What's my claim about ether?
That there is some.
When did I state that?
That's a good point. I don't know.
He no longer believes in ether, so we can go ahead and move on.
Okay.
That's how I take that.
So you're not an ether believer?
No, his questions were about the double.
Sorry, was that a question to you, Khan? So you're not an ether believer?
No, but you guys got...
So that's not a question to you, Khan? Do it again and I'll just remove you from this conversation.
Claim ether at all.
Right, bye-bye, Khan. Bye-bye, dickhead.
The experimental validation of the double slit experiment actually being an experiment and what you're varying.
I just have some basic questions about photons and electrons.
Oh, really? Not about ether
then.
But why? The conversation is about ether.
Because I want to understand fully the mechanisms within quantum mechanics.
No, you're full of shit.
So why? Sorry, why?
Very easy.
Why?
It doesn't have...
Why? What does that have to do with ether, the subject on the table?
You're right. I shouldn't try to understand it. I should just...
Sorry, what does that have to do with ether, the subject on the table? Your personal knowledge in regards to quantum mechanics is irrelevant to this discussion.
Does anybody have...
Go and get a book on it, you stupid shit. I'm not here to educate you on fucking quantum mechanics.
Because you can't.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
okay, then.
Sorry, we're not talking about quantum mechanics. Your vain attempt to ad homing me won't work.
Your vain attempt...
Sorry, stuttering wanker. We're not talking about quantum mechanics. You are, because we're asking you about ether and you can't prove it. So you need to change the subject double quick pronto to something that isn't ether and start asking us questions so you can retain the conversation control. That's not going to work here.
So Nathan, what is a...
So if you're not going to answer the questions about ether and you don't have any input on ether, you're only here to red herring away from ether then. That's your only objective, to red herring away from the discussion on the table then. That's your only objective.
What's the question about ether?
Sorry, are you not discussing ether? If you're not, shut up. Good, glad we sorted that out. We won't be red herring away from the discussion on the table. So there's a claim of science when it comes to ether. Fog gyro is claimed to be science by, let's not be too blunt about this, retards in flat Earth who think that a fog gyro is somehow a naturally observed phenomena and that somehow that's going to be scienced. No, it isn't. You guys don't understand what science is when you claim ether. Meanwhile, quantum mechanics might be very useful for computing, has sod all to do with the nature of our reality in terms of the discussion on the table.
I wonder sometimes if they just bring up ether just as an excuse to start asking questions about other things than ether. Because it happens every time. They go through all of it. Light, magnetism, quantum mechanics, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's a very interesting conversation, but none of it is actually about ether.
No, when they do it, because they have nothing for their ether. But they're...
Yeah, but you can turn the table only so many times before it's right back up. So...
Sorry, I had some noise. No, they think that going to the double slit is some sort of victory.
Yeah, because it means they don't have to talk about ether anymore. Much easier to attack someone else's claim than defend your own nonsense.
They never did talk about ether. They used the word, but nobody knows what it is. And then when you ask, then it's everything. But then when you want to get specific, then it's just something else that isn't ether every time. Just like, what are you doing?
YouTube says Ethor. E-T-H-O-R, E-T-H-O-R, and then puts a hammer after it.
Did you notice at the beginning how he associated myself being a Christian and believing in the Creator for the cause of everything to ether? So really, consciousness in the universe is now become their God, and it's become ether because they can't take the God of the Bible who's going to judge them one day. So they got to regulate that God into consciousness and being one with the universe. This is so obvious what they're doing.
But is that not how my question kind of fit in? Because again, what I'm hearing is more of a spiritual conversation than an actual physical scientific conversation. And I said, if that's what it is, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you nailed it.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Yeah, while you might like talking to stupid hippies with their stupid nonsense that they spew about things that can't be proven, I'm not interested in that at all, Chocolate, here.
Well, no, not here. But what I'm saying is that the problem I'm thinking is that there's two factions, right? Or maybe not two, but there's different factions. And one is claiming that it's science and it's provable and you can detect it and measure it. And then I guess the others are saying that you can't. So,
well, the problem is they got they're believing in that Muppet Ken Wheeler and whatever their high priest says. And now Bob.
Well, that one gentleman seemed like he would.
Sorry.
I just don't want to generalize all of them in the same basket. You know what I'm saying? That maybe I'm being the good cop here. I don't know. This conversation doesn't really go anywhere. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just a whole category error or context error. I'm not sure.
Aberration. It's an aberration. Somebody in chat right now is telling me, no, Arwin, you're wrong. Ether is form.
Thank you for chat skanking.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say that one gentleman seemed like he was on the right path to figuring it out when he asked if there's a way to manipulate the information. talking about slit detectors. I don't know. I have hope for him.
For the ether.
He's not an ether believer.
Who's not
Napalm,
an ether believer?
Napalm, the guy who was talking about the validity.
Oh, yes,
of the,
he is.
He didn't. He just said he didn't claim it, which infers that he wasn't claiming it or wouldn't be.
Oh, yes, he is. He's just a lying piece of shit.
Oh, when I asked you if you're an ether believer and you said you weren't claiming it,
didn't
asked me
ask
when you
me if
claim
I
it.
was
Now he's getting rumpusy. Seems that when I
Now
pose a
he's
question to
saying
these
you
ether
did-
believers, they decide that they're just going to talk straight through the middle of me.
Oh, he's an etherhead.
I asked you for proof of ether, and you said you weren't claiming it.
You didn't ask me for proof of ether.
But the entire discussion was about ether, and I pointed out that we were moving away from the discussion on the table of ether in favour of you moving the conversation away from ether. And then you pointed out that you weren't claiming it. That's what you did.
It's not how it went. You can...
Sorry, not how it went. I asked you specifically why you were moving the conversation away from ether. That's what I asked. And you said you weren't claiming it. That is how the conversation went.
I said I didn't make a claim of ether.
Yeah. So, in reality, you are in fact an ether believer, and you just jumped on the bandwagon of take this conversation well away from ether.
Because you don't understand.
Sorry, don't ad hom me, dickhead. We asked about ether. That was the conversation on the table when you jumped in and started asking about particles. Now it's pretty clear that you are an ether believer and did need to move the conversation away from you proving your belief in ether. That's what you did. When you said you weren't making the claim about ether, when you moved the conversation on the table away from it.
What's a virtual photon?
So why are you asking us a new question? New question that's not related to ether again?
Because we're trying to expose your
Hold on a
beliefs.
second.
Sorry, expose my belief? No, we're trying to expose the nonsense of the assertion of ether. We haven't laid down any claims. That's been the discussion on the table the whole time. But you need to move it away to discredit me personally. That's what you need to do, right? Not back your claim of ether, discredit me personally.
No. But 1 second.
What's
He
a
said,
virtual
what's a
photon,
virtual
Nathan?
photon, right? Well, why don't you go ask that ether knucklehead Gleam, who's been using virtual photons as proof of ether for the past 4 fucking years. Go ask him.
There you go.
That
There you go. There's somebody who's using photons from your own side
virtual?
of ether believers that is making a claim with it. Gleam is making a claim.
Gleam.
How
Yes,
is
sir.
something virtual a proof?
They're going to go and ask Gleam?
Yes, Gleam.
Yeah, we're not making a claim about that.
Who?
Gleam. You're talking about particles and photons, right?
Is a photon a particle?
So we're not making a claim about it. The claim on the table is that there's this all-encompassing ether that is part of everything in existence. That's a pretty bold claim that needs backing.
Is a photon a particle?
So you're going to ask the same question that's not related to ether again? Is your only purpose in here, in this conversation, to take it as far away from your claim of ether as possible?
Far away from his religion.
Why
Dumb
can't
fuck
you?
religion at
Why
that.
can't you back your religious belief in ether? Why can't you just tell us what it is? You're going to ask me a question about something unrelated again?
That's exactly what it is, a religion.
I'm going to have to retract my hope for him. I'm sorry.
I'm just
Damn, I
trying to
nearly-
understand.
Not just a religion.
He's going to tell us how he's trying to understand something that's unrelated to ether now. I absolutely guarantee it.
No, I'm just trying to
Ether
find
is not
out
just a religion, it's a mystery religion
where the
because they
photon
don't
comes
know what
from,
it is.
how it manifests.
Well, when it's talking about the ether, it's coming from your own side. Gleam, we've given you an example where someone who is claiming ether is talking about it. We're not. But you constantly want to red herring away from your claim. Your claim. The one you said that you hadn't claimed, the one you lied about, so you could continually and perpetually ask us about something unrelated? That lie you told? Yeah, you are an ether believer.
Can you rewind and say where I claimed ether in this conversation?
We know you're an ether believer, and we were discussing ether when you jumped in.
Yep.
Yeah, you dumb
Are you a
shit.
photon believer?
So you're going to immediately ignore that you jumped in on a conversation about ether to perpetually red herring away from the conversation about ether. And when I point out that you are, in fact, an ether believer, you say, well, I didn't claim it. No, you only joined in the conversation on ether to take the conversation as far away from the bullshit about ether as is humanly possible. So what's ether? You have got a belief in this ether shit. And I just want to believe like you just want to believe in particles unrelated to this conversation about ether. You being an ether believer, I'm asking you about your belief, and I'm asking you for your science in your belief. Have you got any? Or are you going to ask me an unrelated question for the 5th time?
Do you want me to answer your question about ether?
Yeah, what is it?
It's the etheric energetic background in which all energy manifests from.
Energetic background. So ether.
So when your photon becomes a virtual photon, where does it go?
Oh, that's your virtual photon.
Sorry, you used the word ethereal in your description.
Yep.
Yep, the etheric.
So the etheric, so ether, so Narnia is the Narnia region. It's the Narnic region, right?
It's the energetic.
It's the Narnic region. If I am asked what Narnia is and I say it's the Narnic region, that's just using the same word in the description of the thing you're trying to qualify. That's what you've done. Maybe attempt to move on to particles again. You haven't demonstrated what ether is. You've just made a baseless assertion that includes the very description that you're trying to prove.
He could just go with energetic background, right?
We heard you the first time. Etheric background. Background, okay, behind what? Behind what ground?
Energetic background.
Yeah, I heard background. Behind what ground?
The material.
The material? So it's physical then?
No, it's behind the physical.
So physical is a material. Material is physical. That's what material is. So you can show it me. Show me the physical material.
You don't have any physical.
You stuttering wanker. I want to see this physical material you've said it is. Show it me.
No, I didn't say it was physical.
You said it was a material. Materials are physical.
No, he's saying it's the background behind the material, Nathan.
So what material would it be behind?
Wrong.
And then show it me being behind it, please.
Oh, that's wrong too.
Wrong.
What, behind?
I don't want to hear wrong. I want you to tell me outright what you claim is.
Get its definition I got.
It's the energetic background in which all energy manifests from.
Behind what? Behind what ground? I asked you this already. We heard you the first time. Repeating it constantly won't answer the questions that follow up your statement and baseless assertion. Behind what ground? If it's a background, it's behind other ground. So what ground is it behind? And how is it physically behind it?
In which all material...
So he's just chanting the same claim over and over again through the top of me.
Yeah.
You're going to need removing, aren't you, Napalm?
Into the material.
Sorry, he's just chanting the same exact thing over and over again through the top of me. Behind...
because you can't understand.
Yeah, he can't listen. No objection or question that follows is 5 times repeating the same thing through the top of me is going to be accepted. No questions, just chant the same thing 5 times.
You have no knowledge.
We heard you, and now it's followed up by ad hoc. So now it's going to be baller tactic of chant the same thing 5 times, chanting through every single response that you get, and then ad hom rather than listening to it being repeated again. So when he actually shuts up, which he'll never do, he's still chanting the same exact thing through the top of me. There he is chanting. He's not listening to me. Doesn't want to listen to any questions that follow up his baseless assertion because he can't tolerate questions following up his baseless assertion. That's why he's chanting his baseless assertion over and over and over again through the top of me. That's what he's doing right now through the top of me.
All you're doing is...
All you're doing is stuttering through the top of me, wanker. You're not addressing anything that we have as objections to your baseless assertion. You're just talking through me.
What was your objection?
Behind what ground?
Behind the material realm.
So behind the physical is the immaterial, the non-physical.
Is energy
he's
physical?
talking
Sorry,
extra-
why is it that I'm asking you to clarify what you've just said and you ask me a question?
Ask me the question again.
So it's behind the physical and it's non-physical, non-material, behind a background to the material, physical.
Mm-hmm.
That means it's non-physical, non-physics, not capable of being scienced, not even capable of being shown because it's non-physical. So this is nonsense.
No, he said it was energy, Nathan. He's saying there's a non-physical energy. That's what he said.
Oxymoron.
He's trying to suggest
It's an
extra
oxymoron. You
dimension.
can't have non-physical energy.
Yeah,
Where does
he said
energy
it was an
manifest from?
energetic background, so that must mean it's a non-physical energy.
That's
like
an
a married
oxymoron.
bachelor. Have fun.
Where
It's an
does
oxymoron.
where does energy manifest?
Why are you asking us a question? We've pointed out that you've got an oxymoron. You can't have non-physical energy.
Where does energy
So
manifest?
why are you asking me a question? We're pointing out the oxymoron contradiction in your statement. You have ignored it now 3 times in favour of asking a new question.
Yep.
Yep. So you're a chanting fundy. Chanting fundies who come here to tell us about the non-physical, non-showable, but simultaneously incorporating everything in known existence. Yeah, that's total nonsense.
You realize the idea of a non-physical background.
An idea isn't physical. No, I don't pay any credence to Muppets' ideas of non-physical physicality because it's an oxymoron. I've already pointed out to you that it's an oxymoron. You just haven't acknowledged it.
Hey, moron.
So get out of my show. Chant through every last word I say, then call me a moron. So move from the pointing out that you've got an oxymoron, a contradiction in terms, to calling me the moron. No, idiot. I'm pointing out your contradiction. You're not just going to call me a moron rather than address me after rumpusing every single attempt to point out your contradiction that you didn't listen to. Did anybody in Discord hear me pointing out to him his contradiction? I realise I can watch his line dancing up and down the entire time I'm talking, so I know full well none of you heard it. Did anybody in Discord actually hear the response to him, or did you only get to hear him repeating the same claim 5 times?
No, we got to hear you, Nathan.
Oh, well, that's a nice response. Didn't expect that. Good. Why didn't he address it, I ask myself? He's got a contradiction in terms. Non-physical, physical. Undetectable, unmanifest, but yet physical and scienceable. These are contradictions in terms that he cannot address. So what? I'm a moron for pointing that out when he hasn't addressed it? No, definitely not. An ad hominem fallacy. That's why he got kicked out, in case anybody's wondering.
Nathan, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
It would seem to me, based on the number of them that have come on and discussed this matter of ether, that, again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I think there's a link that all these people were evolutionists and didn't believe in the metaphysical at one time. But now that evolution has been disbanded, proven wrong, doesn't exist, can't define it, never seen, they need something. And so rather than say the creator or God, they go to universal consciousness, metaphysical ether. And so they were once evolutionists who didn't believe in any of this stuff, and now they're promoting it.
Honestly, that might be the case, but I really do not care. Because what it's actually doing is distracting us away from pointing out that space is fake. There is no sky vacuum. That the place they're claiming to currently go to the moon, even though it's been delayed, they're not going to space to get to the moon. So if we can be preoccupied arguing with the people who get that little bit more extra promotion because they talk that little bit of extra shite to the people who have woken up to the nonsense they've been lied to about, much better to have us arguing with these idiots than arguing with the globe-believing Muppets we defeat so easily, because then we're preoccupied talking about ether to anyone who comes here, and they won't hear how the sky vacuum that they're claiming to travel through to get to the moon is completely fake. You've all been lied to. Now, for the small majority of idiots that have jumped out of the frying pan of globe earth and into the fire of ether, they think we need to occupy our time with that. No, the Western world still believes they're on a sphere, and that sphere is falling around the sun in a sky vacuum. A very small proportion of these idiots that believe in ether really are inconsequential, unless we occupy vast chunks of our time not debunking the globe earth paradigm that the Western world is actually under. Very few people believe in ether. Just a very small select chunk of idiots in flat earth believe in ether.
I would like to point out that Einstein's claim of space-time was similar to his description of ether being the background medium.
Yeah, what a shock. These ether believers have just got some old heliocentric trash to peddle from Einstein with his background. Eli, you're off mute.
I guess they would say, sorry for the music.
That's all right. I thought you were just off mute.
But yeah, they would. I guess they would say it's not science, number one. But I think the only qualifier for that is well, when they're saying nothing doesn't exist. I guess that's the only portion that's pertinent to when they're saying it's not science, it's just logical.
But their leader is saying that it is science. Dumpster fire.
When would you say nothing?
I'm just trying to represent the streets.
No. It's not. I don't know. It's no. The answer to that is no. I don't know. He wrote it down.
I'll read it. FED is incapable of understanding the science behind the ether. Bob Nodell.
Wow.
When you say nothing does,
well, I can't represent him. I'm just trying to represent.
Yeah, but I can. He's on screen right now. It's directed at you. It's directed at you. FED, that's you.
Anal.
That's you. He's directing this at you personally.
While saying it's not science, I guess some would double speak and say, well, there's an effect happening in the Michelson-Morley. Like if there's something going on, and it would be a shame. It would be a shame to ignore.
Oh, really? Where's the Michelson and Morley phenomena observed in nature?
That's the thing. It's not.
Oh, so it's not science then. So when Bob says we're incapable of understanding the science behind ether, even though Austin Whitsitt is making it very clear in his video that it isn't science, it's that we don't understand, Bob. No, Bob, you're a fucking retard, Bob Nodell from Globebusters, and I'm going to make that absolutely plain right now. You want to go on chat comments telling me that I'm incapable of understanding the science behind ether? There isn't any, you fucking idiot. And I'm going to tell my audience that. Please go and repeat to Bob that he's a fucking idiot. You want to tell me and my panel we don't understand your science? You haven't got any, you complete retard.
I think
real quick, Adam. The problem I see is that they try to parallel the Michelson-Morley with the quantum realm, I would say. And I'm sure you guys would say there are bits of it, bits of the rhetoric that go beyond the science, right? And none of us here disagree with that, but what do you mean?
Two people just did before you finished your sentence. Two people disagreed with you, Eli.
Point to it, isn't it? It's if you're going to make a comparison to anything, and I alluded to this earlier, we were mugged off in the past. To believe in a magical force of gravity. And one of the things that held it together was two balls in a shed. Yeah. And what was attributed to the issues in that mechanical device. Yeah. And this is exactly what we've got here. Yeah. In the same validation of the ether. We haven't got anything, other than a bit of claimed gravity force. In this case, it's ether rotation. The only place it exists is in an interpretation of the results. There's nothing within the experiment that's supposed experiment that is testing, manipulating that, or even aware of it. Yeah. It only exists in an interpretation of the data. That's very different to the quantum stuff, fundamentally.
And with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. Huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the super chat and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!